Fuck, how am I going to open this? I really did not plan this through.
Brilliant start.
It's
Okay,
fun.
so I
Then
we don't exactly have a name for this, so whatever this ends up being named in the video, that's what we are. Hello, I'm Jordan. You've probably seen me in some other videos. With me are my friends Troy and Faceless Cleric. And
How you
today,
doing?
Troy or Cleric, you there?
yeah,
All
I'm
right,
here.
cool. And today we're going to be talking about zombie games. So, since I'm the one that suggested the topic, just what are your guys' thoughts on zombie games in general?
Playing that often because I think it's just a pull off making a come back to a lot of times because a lot of zombie games just end up feeling freaking samey.
All right.
I think I can enjoy zombie games for a certain amount of time period, but I think very similar to how like the TV show and the whole trend is like it was really big and like well zombies and stuff and just in general as pop culture outside of games is still like when The Walking Dead first came out and a bunch of other stuff it was boom, it was like absolutely everywhere and down a bit. But I mean, they can feel very like generic because there's a very easy to see formula of general survival in these games. I mean that's the point of everything with the zombie apocalypse. It usually ends up being that kind of apocalypse. There's a few other games that are a bit different. Uh,
Well, part of the reason what I meant is that they generally fall under like two categories, and it's usually like a fairly realistic type of zombie game where it's like The Walking Dead, where all the zombies are just people. That, and then there's zombie games like Left 4 Dead, where they have like zombies that mutate into specialized like things like the hitters and chargers and tanks and all that stuff. Zombie games just they're either they just fall into like one of those two categories, so it's hard for them to like stick out and be memorable.
Well, the thing about that is, I'm kind of glad you brought up Left 4 Dead because I'm not really sure if it can be. I see it more as a survival game than anything. Like not like survival like Minecraft, but like survival in the sense that it's like like in all technicality. Like I know the characters in game call them zombies, but it's really just a really like highly effective rabies kind of thing. I know my inner nerd is showing here, but it's like
I mean, it's
sorry.
pretty much like a real life zombie is for the most part, and on top of that, it's just rabies. It still does mutate them into like tanks and everything.
That's fair enough. That is a good point.
I think one game that did everything very good is on zombie games ever is The Last of Us. And one of the reasons why I enjoy that game so much is because the zombies are fungal based. And why I appreciate that so much because I don't know if many people know about this. Yeah, there's a parasitic fungus called the cordyceps. Now, there's many different types of cordyceps. They're mostly the cordyceps are basically there's specific. Currently, they only affect insects. What will usually happen, for example, like you can see this stuff in like National Geographic, is there's one where they'll try and sprout over a basic form and the spores will somehow try and get inside the body of an ant and infect it. And an infected ant will be kind of like brainwashed, and they'll walk up the top of like a branch or a bush, or something that's above the colony vantage point, other than just the basic cordyceps that'll grow on the ground, and it will force the ant to lock its pincers, its jaw in place, so it can't move, and the body will start to partially decay, everything else, blah blah blah, but the fungus will begin to sprout out of the body of that ant and try and infect the rest of the colony. And the ants actually, there's a lot of, I don't know for ants, this one more stuff of them. If they find them, they'll like take it away, like they like know that is dead. But it's possible that I think in like I'm not sure the exact time period, but theories of evolution and everything else that could actually happen to humans. Like they could become infected if our bodies can't learn to fight back this parasitic fungus somehow. If the cordyceps itself evolves into a point and adapts to where it can't affect humans and humans become a viable target. I think with that was part of the inspiration for the game The Last of Us. So I think the way that some of the zombies work and that, like how they'll like kind of be like dormant, they're not just constantly roaming around and stuff like that. Concept. I think they did that game very well because there's more like than The Walking Dead and other stuff where they're just kind of like, they're here and then they're like missing limbs and bodies and stuff. And it's like when you think of like physics and like actual strength, like these zombies shouldn't have strength if they don't have the muscles because their body decayed after so long.
Yeah.
But they also shouldn't they shouldn't even be able to like move around because of like blood loss and necrosis and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
maybe at a certain point, but like I think like if stuff were like The Walking Dead, it wouldn't last like months and months, and depending on the environment, how long it take for a body to decay. But realistically, the zombies would only last for, I'd say, probably at least maybe 3 to 5 months, and then after that, it'd just be a relief effort because all the effective zombies, unless somehow whatever other stuff, blah blah blah, they wouldn't be able to attack people. So
I feel like kind of going off what you're saying, like, I understand what you're saying, like, how The Last of Us does really good because they actually take, like, real-life things into effect and, like, how a real-life zombie situation could happen. But I kind of, like, my view on, like, zombies, like, related media as a whole is that, like, zombies should be more of a set piece than, like, a main villain kind of thing. Like, Left 4 Dead, basically the entire way through, the only actual, like, opposing force is the zombies. Whereas in like later issues of the Walking Dead comic and kind of in the show, I stopped watching the show so I don't know where they are. And in the game, the zombies kind of become a obstacle, like a minor obstacle where there's actual like other human like enemies
people like Negan and stuff, where like people go versus people.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the more like the right way to do zombie media, in my personal opinion, where like have zombies but don't make them the main like force to overcome,
Kind of like that problem with zombie media in general too, because that's the only thing people do. They either make zombies the villains or they make them the side thing, make it human versus human.
Right.
Or explore like a post-apocalypse world, a world where like zombies just exist, but in like smaller numbers because like there isn't as many people, and zombies decompose and everything. So it's just like another threat that the future of future with and stuff. Like
I think a game like that would be very difficult to make.
Yeah, like
no idea. But I mean, it's a media thing in general. Like no one's ever explored, as far as I know, no one's ever explored that concept of like what happens after the zombies.
Actually, Dead Rising kind of does that. So I'm going to delve into Dead Rising lore here a little bit. So if anyone cares for spoilers, then just kind of skip this. But in Dead Rising 1, there's just one small town that's affected by the first outbreak, and then in the following after that, a company makes a kind of like not really a cure, but more of like a medicine that you have to take every so long to stop the infection from spreading and turning you into a zombie. And there's more like zombies are used for entertainment, like on TV shows where people like just mow down zombies and like stuff. Then another outbreak happens and it just kind of continues from there. So like this is kind of what you were talking about, how there's like a world where zombies exist and they're kind of living in it. And just kind of...
I mean, I haven't played a lot of Dead Rising, but still, even in that game, it's mostly just about like major cities and big areas are like decimated by zombies and stuff.
Yeah. No, yeah, I know, but like I'm saying, like
really
they kind of had the backstory.
Like, it's like it never like explores like what a world's like where it's back and everything. It's just zombies either exist or they have existed in the past.
Fair enough.
Well, once after the like in that world, like what would be other sources of conflict? Like how would you you'd have to have some sort of like plot premises for this game. Like how would you build on this?
Something I'm referring more to like something that'd be work better in the format of a book or a TV show or a movie or something. But look at like this. Let's say it's been since like the worst of the zombie apocalypse happened, and now the survivors of humanity are reforming nations and stuff, and the world is kind of returning back to normal. But there's still occasional zombie hordes that travel around. There's still occasional zombies that are wandering around like abandoned cities and stuff. So like they have to be careful not to like stuff. So I would return to like a feudal era, a society where cities are like walled off and stuff, and there'd be like drama of like trying to new nation states forming and trying to reclaim what was lost to the zombies and everything. It's good,
All right.
like human drama. It's in that. That's in that. But like I said, it's something that's never explored because people always want to just look at what would happen if society collapsed and there were zombies. You know what I mean? To the zombie apocalypse that people ever pay attention to. It seems like.
Well, it's because like I feel like part of that is because zombies are easy to understand. Like, it's easy to put zombies in something and say, you're in a world with zombies, have fun, and then you have a premise for anything.
I'm just overdone though. That's the problem.
Yeah, I feel like it's only been overdone in recent years. What with, because like if you look at it, like before, I'm trying. Whatever came first, Dead Rising or Left 4 Dead? I think it might have been Left 4 Dead, but I could be wrong about that. Like before, no, it was Dead Rising because that's 2006. Before, like 2006, there weren't really many like zombie-related things anymore. Like it kind of died down. And then Dead Rising happened, which had inspired Left 4 Dead, which then The Walking Dead got a TV show, and then it just all became this big like explosion again.
Yeah. But the point is that it's an overdone thing. It's an overdone genre at the moment because this falls into stuff that's already been done before, and it's very hard for it to be unique and new. So I'm saying, like,
Right.
I'm just throwing out ideas of like, here's how you could totally revitalize the whole idea of zombies and make the genre actually more new. It's something that no one really seems to do nowadays. It's all about look at how terrifying a zombie apocalypse would be, or look at how society and look at how good that some people would still be, and the struggle between good and evil, chaos and all that in the face of like adversity. But
Troy,
topic.
Troy, you have something you want to say?
I was just about to talk. Okay, but like I agree with you, Cleric, on like a lot of how it's like overused and how that would be a good idea. But I don't know how more of the general public would act about it because I mean, obviously, the whole point of a lot of these things is you have to get, it's not going to sell if people don't like it. You have to have people who like it,
Yeah.
and then you have to and that type of there could be a certain set of interest, but it's very similar to other stuff that's already kind of happened. General drama be very popular. I mean, it's just certain different TV shows, different things. But I mean, at a certain point, like
Walking Dead
there's
TV show, yeah,
but like
Sorry,
there's already so much that's like already happened or kind of assumed from the apocalypse. Like the reason why the zombie apocalypse itself is so good is because there's always so much action, so much intense emotion that's already there. People can connect. Like it, like what is going to happen next? Who's going to die next? It's like how are they going to get past this? How are they, once to this post era where maybe say depending on how it goes, depending on what the story of these types of zombies are, whether it's like fungal based, the stereotypical zombie, they eat, brains and flesh, whatever else. Do you have to be bitten by it, or is it, or is it like an actual disease where like, in air, certain things, it's kind of like a toxic environment where you can get contaminated. Like you got to build, but then once you do, I guess like my big action is already in the essential apocalypse. That's where you see humanity at its general darkest, because it's not just there aren't built societies, the governments are fallen, it's people against people. It's the people, like as you see in things in The Walking Dead, it's either me and it's my family versus the world. It's like whether you're a zombie or human, I'm going to do whatever it takes to defend my. There's some people where it's like they try and get more people, try and help people. It's like we need to build society again. And there's people that are paranoid or they don't trust anybody, and they have good reason not to. And they're like, it's like anybody near me is a threat. Like I'm on my own. I'm a lone wolf. Or it's like we don't accept outsiders. Like we're not taking that risk. Like we don't know if you're from like a different like faction that's somehow grown. It's like there's all this very good plot and development from the initial apocalypse that I'm not sure could be fully brought back well enough to satisfy a public apocalyptic era.
I mean, you make a good. Imagine it like this: like you know the setting of Fallout New Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know how it's like about like the different nation states, power and stuff, and the wasteland in a post-apocalyptic world, and like The Walking Dead, but there's like zombies aren't as big of a threat, but they still exist as a threat. Now imagine like using those two settings kind of together, where it's like, you know, humanity's decimated, but after years of the zombies becoming less frequent and more that they form nation states, and then there's your drama of, you know, groups still trying to get control over the world, and zombies still, albeit they're less of a, you know, now, and they're more just like predatory creatures and stuff, kind of like in Fallout you'd have like, you know, super mutants and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Like you can make it work. It's just, again, it's nothing that's ever really been explored, I think.
It'd be interesting to see if that could be made possible to work. Like, I don't know, because like I can see both of your guys' points. I feel like we won't ever. I feel like we can't really like come to a definitive answer on whether that would work or not unless we could see it in action. You know?
Yeah. I mean, different people have conflicting views and different things. Like we're three people. Like it would matter. Like you have to have like a large audience to video would work or not.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other times where, you know, sometimes people don't really know what they want until they see it. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah, that's actually true. Like, I've done that a couple times with certain games, like Street Fighter, for example. I didn't know I wanted a fighting game like that until I started playing it. So yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about. Or going to bleep that out. Cleric's talking about here.
I get that. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't like. I would like to see it. Like, I would like to see it happen. I just feel like I was just saying before, and different things. I just feel like as popular current zombie apocalypse type, or I think it would take a little bit longer to grow.
Yeah.
So I think maybe if it's starting to focus here, very good. Now, actually, I don't know if I know of like I've never read the books of World War Z. I think I believe there's more than one if I'm correct. I think there's two, possibly three. But I know I've seen the first movie, and I don't know if there's a second movie. I've seen the movie.
One movie?
There's only one movie.
Books. I know I've seen the movie that they've created, and you know at the end they're talking about how like, have you both seen the movie?
I've seen it. I didn't really like it, but that's not the point right now. I have seen it though.
Cleric, have you seen the movie?
I saw the movie.
Okay, so you know how it's like at the end where they're like, well now like we know like how to combat this. Like we know it's like once we're ill and we're not a quote unquote healthy host, they don't want us. Like they want to have the best possible body, and if they can't have that, they're gonna have conflicts for them. So I think it's possible that depending on how the second book goes, if there is a second one, I think they might delve on that a little bit. So I might have to try and take a look into that and see on another day. But I'd be interested to see how in that world, because the zombies in World War Z are much different than your stereotypical zombies.
Yeah, the whole build a pyramid to climb up a wall and everything.
Yeah, it's like a hive mind. It's a very intelligent type of organism that's taking over a body.
I'm just going to weigh in real quick. So Troy, you said you hadn't read the books, right?
That is correct.
Are you cool if I drop like a kind of a minor spoiler for it?
Oh, go ahead. I don't mind at all.
Okay, so the movie is kind of vastly different from the book in the sense that the book isn't following one character. It's more just a collection of stories based from throughout like the fight against zombies.
Okay.
So it's like, I get what you're saying. I was just like, that was a small nitpick I had to get in there. Sorry.
Oh no, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. So, what do you guys think on the difference between like in video games at least between normal zombies and like runner zombies like in Left 4 Dead?
Well, I mean, let's throw this out there. I'm studying like how to be a game developer right now, so I have to kind of pay attention to this and think. But here's what I think, just as someone's kind of working on getting into that industry. Type just human basic zombies are not a very good enemy if you're going to make it the only enemy in the game. When you think about it from a gameplay perspective, they only offer one type of enemy, one type of gameplay whenever they're encountered. Maybe one or two if they're individually or in a horde or whatever. For like that much variety to what you're going to be playing, and thus unless there's some other the game that makes it fun to play, it's not going to be a very fun game to play for very long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But have a variety of enemies, it makes it more interesting for the player, and it makes them want to continue playing and play more and everything.
Like more diversity, more like, and it takes like more strategy to play the game a different thing.
Play more off varieties to what they can do, which keeps it from getting the same and which keeps them interested typically.
All right, I'm going to have to disagree with you on one point, and that was saying that with like normal slow zombies, there's only one or two ways to fight them. And like I agree that if it's like a game with only one style of combat, then yeah, that makes sense. But then like that's why, in my opinion, if like a game is focusing around zombies, you have to have multiple ways and like different ways of fighting them. Like I'm going to go back to Dead Rising here with the sense that like every weapon you pick up has a different feel to it and works differently. Like if you pick up a baseball bat, then you'll hit them like you're hitting. Then you'll hit them from like the side, and like you can feel the weight and see like you can feel the weight of a baseball bat when you hit with it in the game. Whereas if you pick up a sledgehammer, you'll slam down with it and it'll do more damage, but it's also slower. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like different weapons and such kind of.
Like I see what you're saying, but that only offers variety in the weapons to play, not with the enemies you're facing.
Fair enough.
So yeah, you can get more ways to kill the single type of enemy, but that's still an enemy that's just going to face you the same way every time. But I don't know how this would work. Just imagine, like, let's say there's different types of zombies that have different strengths and weaknesses. Now,
like Left 4 Dead.
Your weapons, Left 4 Dead. But let's say like weapons would work better on others. Like let's say your slow sledgehammer would work better on the slow normal zombies, especially in big groups.
Right.
Poorly against like let's say a runner zombie that's really fast.
Right.
Now switch up your playstyle to counter the different enemies you're facing anyways. You know what
I mean?
Yeah. Like, instead of just like saying like I want to use this weapon or this other weapon.
I think a game that kind of does that to the extent that I played is 7 Days to Die. That's a game I played a lot before I came to school. And I know like there's a lot of very simplistic, basic stuff to it. Obviously, there's like, one single motion for like this and that, like, but there's like strategy, weapons, different things, some are slower, some are faster, some have more durability, some don't, there's like RNG based properties to that. But I think that there's a different variety of zombies in that game. Like there's and like, the longer you go on in that game, it gets progressively more difficult. And like that's why it's called 7 Days to Die, because every 7 days there's a horde, and once you survive so many hordes in a row, they get stronger. There's more zombies in the horde. You'll find possibly different zombies in there. Like and I think a good aspect that they have with that is like when they just walk normally. There's ones that that crawl. There's like police officer zombies they can like spew like sludge at you, different things like that. And they also have the effect of wild animals in the game. I think that variety, like you're talking about, that's needed. I think that's in that game. And also with what Jay was talking about with as well, because there's different, you can go with a group of people and you can use, a bunch of clubs, and if you hit them in the head, hit it a certain way, you can like knock them down and stun them. or like if you're using like a hunter's knife, it hits faster, maybe you can do a bit more damage because it's a sharper weapon, but you can't really like stun them. Or you maybe shoot him in the head, you kill him. If not, there's different aspects to it that allow it to have more playability and enjoyment. Like there's plenty of things to like explore and different ways to increase and decrease your own difficulty.
All right, yeah, I see what you're saying.
I'll give another example though from a different genre of games, like that I think kind of demonstrates what I'm trying to say better. So, like let's talk about first person shooters for a second because that's what I know the best.
All right.
Call of Duty and Battlefield stuff where it's like real war things where essentially when you're playing the campaign, you generally face just the same. They're just an average soldier with different weapons and stuff, and that's where the variety and fun part of that game comes from, is the different weapons you choose and stuff. There's nothing wrong with that, but Halo and to a lesser extent Gears of War, where you have different types of enemies that you face throughout the campaign, and each enemy has its own strengths and weaknesses and different variety, or adds more variety to actual gameplay as opposed to just the weapon sandbox. Halo, they're really weak to precision weapons and just getting headshots with them. Weapons are typically less good against let's say brutes or elites because they have more health and they have armor and everything, so it's hard to get hit them in their vulnerable spots, like take down shields or take out their armor first. So you're usually it's like you need an assault weapon to do that, like a machine gun, or you have like your average locust soldier, but you also have like let's say a corpser, which is like a giant spider. If you guys haven't played that game, and it has like really big armored front legs, so you have to use like a really heavy weapon to hurt it, or you have to wait for it to get close so it can attack you, and then you got to dive out of the vulnerable stuff like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's a fun weapon sandbox, but on top of that, you have more fun and variety from the actual enemies too, because they add another level of depth to the gameplay.
All right, yeah, I see what you're saying there.
Yeah, I understand as well. I think I think to have in a game, obviously, because it gives more reason and more tactic, makes you think more involved in it. It's not just some basic simple thing that gets too overly repetitive too quick.
Yeah. Good old silence, am I right?
Yeah.
So, what would you guys say? What was that?
Just make a joke about Hello Darkness, my old friend.
Oh, okay.
Good Lord. Well, Jay, what were you saying?
I was going to ask you guys what your each of you, what your personal favorite zombie-based game is.
Only two I've ever really played is zombie mode and Black Ops and Left 4 Dead 2.
All right.
No, I've played several different games. I haven't played The Last of Us, but I've watched it. I didn't own a PlayStation to play that game, sadly.
Right.
But Die. I've seen a little bit of The Walking Dead, but never played it. I played stuff like Left 4 Dead. I didn't enjoy that too much. I'd say I enjoy Call of Duty Zombies just because I think it's a very fun game to play with friends. The stakes get higher. If you don't get lucky, there's always you're trying to get a better gun if you don't have the good stuff. You can have the best of the best, but it still can't be good enough if you're not smart enough with it. I like that. I like that you can't ever fully at it, because I think if you were able to win and get boring a little too quickly, like with Extinction and Call of Duty Ghosts with the aliens and stuff, I think once you win so many times, it's only we've already done this. There's only so much. But with zombies, you beat that person.
Yeah.
And then I also really enjoyed 7 Days to Die just because you start off with bare nothing and you can make clothes out of plants, grass and stuff. You gotta build your way up and you gotta find scavenge. It's not an easy game. Or and obviously if you don't take risks and you don't go in these certain areas, it's going to be a bit easier. But I enjoyed that game for very little stuff like Left 4 Dead, if I'm thinking of the right game, where there's like several people with you, and there's like different types of zombies, and it's kind of like almost like a horde survival in a
Yeah, like Left 4 Dead.
sense. And you're like, you're running around, you're trying to like kill these different types of zombies, whatever else stuff. I don't personally enjoy that type of play style, but in other ones where it's more basic actual survival, I think.
All right. Personally, I'd say mine is also probably one of the reasons why I keep going back to this game because it's so biased, but just kind of the Dead Rising franchise as a whole, because like it's the only zombie game I've played that has actually given me the feel of like the Walking Dead comics, but like playing it. Whereas like at least in games 1 through 3, at 4 sucked. Just don't, if you ever play one of the games, don't play 4. And at least in 1 through 3, like the characters were good. They kept a coherent story through all 3 games, which was kind of interesting considering each game took place with a different character in a different area and a different like location. So that was interesting, at least for me. And like just the pure variety in like the enemies of like the human enemies and then like the weapons you could use to kill the zombies. Like one of the big draws of the first couple games is that there's these enemies you can find called psychopaths that are just kind of in the world where it's just different people reacting differently to like the zombie infested like area around them and how they're like losing their mind. Like in the first game, there's one psychopath you have to fight that's like a boss fight for the main story. I think he might be one of the only ones, but I'm not sure. You guys don't care about spoilers, do you?
No.
So you're in like a all right. So like you're in like a supermarket. It's in the mall that you're in, and this is the guy that's alive ran the store, and he runs around through the aisles with a shopping cart that has a ton of like blades and knives and stuff like duct taped to it. And when he sees you, he thinks that you're going to loot the store, even though you're just there to get like medicine for someone. And well, so I guess you are kind of looting, but not to the like degree he's talking about. And so like he just kind of like is having like a mental breakdown at you being there, and then yells, "Get out of my store!" and then tries to kill you while zombies are flooding into it. And it's like, I don't know, just moments like that I think are really cool because it's like you're seeing someone like break down and try to like make sense of themselves in like possibly one of the most terrifying situations like you could be in. And I don't know, it's just like it's that like added depth and stuff that I really liked. Also, you can shoot people with a toy Mega Man gun, so I always thought that was cool.
Actually, thinking of zombie games, I did remember Dead Island as well, but another thing that I think what makes the loosely but the zombie genre more interesting is games that do zombies differently than typical. Because I'm just going to include stuff like Dead Space and
right.
Technically, in the loosest sense, necromorphs are a type of zombies.
Dude, we just need to make zombies in space, and there we go. Instant $1 million game.
Yeah. And there's other games too, like I'll just mention Halo and Gears of War again, because they do differently too, where they make them essentially alien parasites.
Yeah, I guess the Flood can be considered like a zombie-like thing.
Yeah, I mean, in Gears of War, I mean, you kind of consider the Lambent.
Yeah. Locust?
No. And Gears of War 1, and then through parts of Gears of War, I think it's the parts of Gears of War 2 that they're there, and they're like one of the main enemies of Gears of War 3 is it's a mutated form of locusts and humans that have been exposed to. You okay to spoilers for this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you start major spoilers? Everyone okay with this?
Yeah, I'm good with
it. The main fuel source in that setting is something called emulsion. Basically, that was actually a parasite. And when it infected people, it turned them into like a glowing zombie that like it was all mutated and stuff and deformed. And whenever they died, they would explode.
All right.
So they're kind of like zombies, but they're also kind of different. Like I said, so makes the whole dead coming back to life thing makes it a little bit more interesting.
Yeah. I think one of the like my biggest problems was like, because zombie games are one of my favorite like genre of games, just because there's I don't know, it's just they feel fun. Like Left 4 Dead, I love playing with my friend Chris, and it's a fun game where it's like I know Troy, you said you didn't really like that kind of thing, but there's just something nice about like tearing through like a city full of zombies with a friend, and then like Dead Rising is like I like the story and I like the feel it gives off, but like my biggest overall problem is this is mostly like a problem with like in the Walking Dead games, but just and Left 4 Dead, but when they're just like a giant
Play the
horde.
Walking Dead games.
Yeah, I've played them. I played all three of them, and I'm excited for season 4. It's just my biggest problem is hold on, you guys have both played season 1 of The Walking Dead, right?
Around season
No.
2.
All right, Troy, do
Yeah,
you at least
season
know?
2.
I don't mind spoilers at all. Anything in the future, I don't mind spoilers at all.
Okay, so like in the end of episode 5 of season 1 of The Walking Dead game, like it made this when they had the giant horde show up. That like I know it makes sense in this case because of the train, but like in any other situation, there's no reason for there to be like gigantic hordes of them traveling together. Like, kind of goes back to what Cleric said earlier about like them kind of, about or no, this was Troy that said this. Sorry, my bad. About how with like the fungus they don't just kind of wander around. They just kind of sit there and wait. It's like there's no reason for like a million zombies to travel together in a big herd and with no direction. It's a minor detail that's really bugged me.
Here's the way I look at it. These things work differently than the fungus zombies, because fungus zombies, the way they work is that they try to go to some place where they know they can infect a lot of people and then sprout spores, and that's how they infect things, not by biting. The Walking Dead zombies are closer to like the rabies kind of zombies, where they're hyper aggressive. And sure, sometimes they just sit around and don't do anything and just wait for and act like an ambush predator. The zombies are shown in The Walking Dead that they're typically shown as being a wandering type of zombie that are typically like actively looking for prey. And how they work is that they're attracted to sound movement. So logically, you can assume that a lot of zombies are to make a lot of noise, so that attract more zombies to it.
Okay, that's actually like a really good like reasoning. Thank you for that. That actually makes a lot of sense. Thank you. All right, what do you guys think? Like, if like, hold on, I had something for this. Give me a second.
Take your time.
All right. So, like, I kind of want to keep on like the topic of the Walking Dead game. Do you think? I know Troy, you're like, this is kind of, like you haven't played this, but I just kind of want to get this out there. Do you think that the overall story was like? Do you think it did good in the setting it was in? Like, because like personally, I feel like there's no possible way like a story like of that magnitude could have like for the first season of the Walking Dead game could have worked in any other setting.
No, what setting are you?
I mean, like
what? Explain to me, like, what is the setting? I guess.
So okay, so in like the story of like the first, is that your phone?
I apologize.
It's all good, man. Don't worry.
And once you're done explaining, you'll have to give me a moment. I'm doing laundry currently. I have to get my stuff out of the dryer.
All right, but like kind of like the premise of season 1 of the Walking Dead game is your character is trying to get this little girl back to her parents. Now it's kind of like The Last of Us actually, except you're not getting her back to her parents in The Last of Us, but you know what I mean.
Someone that's not like your family, but they're like you. Them and help them get them to their destination.
Yeah, it's someone you're trying to protect, and like I feel like the deep-seated like emotion we can get from like, because the Walking Dead game is a game that has made a lot of people very emotional about the characters, and I think the reason why is because the story that they tell, you can't just like take it and slap it into another setting. Like with Telltale other games, like Tales from the Borderlands, for example, you could take the main story of it, which is like two people go after the same treasure and hilarity ensues. Like you can put that into any like setting, and it's not specific to like Borderlands. But with the Walking Dead game, like sure, like getting a child like somewhere safe, like that can be any story, but to the way it's done and to the way it's like effectively made, I feel like having the zombies was like a crucial part like of that. You know what I
I
mean?
think I understand what you're saying
Oh.
because like there's because there's that sense of like danger and like that trust that you have to have. Like you don't know if it's like if it will be okay, but like you have to take that risk because that's the only chance you have. Like there's not
Exactly.
like essential like communication like in a modern society or anything else like that. There's you know, you have a child. I don't know how the age of the child or how they acted, but assuming just a child in general, you know, they might not be able to handle things as well as, you know, an actual adult. They don't think, they don't process logic and different things the same way, you know, someone who's older than them will. So there's all these different, you know, they're usually more emotional. Not always. There can be, you know, but usually they're more they're more sensitive, I guess you could say, in a general aspect to scene. So I guess I think from what you've told me and what like I've heard about this game, I think it did very well in the setting just because like what the stakes were and just like everything that happened and just like, you know, and I don't know if this happens or not, but there's always like they'll finally get there and they're you know, they realize that this girl's parents are like are dead or you know, they never find them. It's just, you know, that person they become like their own family. They you laugh. I feel like I might have guessed one of those. Um
Yeah, I'm not gonna say which, but yeah, you did.
okay. But like there's certain thing where it's kind of like this was all for nothing, but then it's like you know, and there's also like they built that trust and connection. Like they obviously like I assumed you know for a good game, good story, they have to go through a lot of stuff together to get to these points. You know, it's not going to be like oh, just walk from this town to this town and you'll find them. You know, there's all these risk factors, different things,
Right.
variables, all this other stuff that adds to it. So aware of, I think that setting was very valuable to that plot.
Right. It's kind of like here. Actually, hey, you have anything to say on this before like I continue on?
Name.
Oh
Cleric.
yeah, I'll bleep it out again. Don't worry. Cleric, my bad.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I just think that it doesn't necessarily have to be one setting, as long as it's like, as long as there is that sense of danger. I guess it doesn't have to be zombies. It could be. Or I'll just use another set. Let's use another setting I know well. Mass Effect. It could be like, let's say it exists in the Mass Effect universe during the Reaper invasion or whatever. You could say like,
Right.
it's a game that it's like a spin-off game. That's you're supposed to find a person and you find a child that's stranded after the Reapers, and you have to get them off the planet and whatever. The danger is like the Walking Dead, and you could still have the same amount of drama, but it would be a different type of enemy. You know what I mean?
Right. But I feel like with that case in particular, like I feel like it. Like let's take another game for example. Final Fantasy 15. The characters in that game are okay. So I'm just going to be clear here. The Walking Dead game and Final Fantasy 15 are the only games where I've actually I've actually really like emotionally cared about the characters because they were actually really really good characters. The thing is though, in both cases, I feel like if you take them out of the setting they're in, then the story just like the characters just wouldn't be as good because like I'm not going to spoil Final Fantasy 15 for anyone because I don't know if anyone's going to try to play it here, but like I know Troy said he doesn't care, but I don't. The game is really good, and I highly recommend that if you want to know, like you should play it. But it's like if you took the main four of Final Fantasy 15 out of that setting and tried putting them into like say another Final Fantasy game, I don't think they'd be as strong as the characters. Like the setting is like if a story is written for a setting, and characters work for that setting. I feel like you can't take them out of that setting and have them be as strong. They might still be strong characters, but not as strong as they could be.
The type of setting, like I said, as long as it like meets the same requirements, then I think that it could work. Because yeah, some characters are designed for like a certain type of story, and that's where they're at their strongest. Are designed to be put into like just about any story and still work great. Like Batman, it's a good example of that. Like,
yeah,
how many different kind of genres has Batman been in and still been awesome?
Okay, well, to be fair, there's also been a lot of bad Batman stories.
But still, I'm trying to talk about the variety of stuff that he's been in and also been good.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's true. Yeah.
You know, he has to be in this certain type of story, otherwise he's just not as good as he's ever been. He's designed to be able to be put into like all kinds of different scenarios and still be just as great of a character as always.
Right.
Just kind of get into the nitty gritty of like, you know, the complexity of designing a good story and a good character and everything.
Right. But like,
and it,
I know like it's a common thing to say that like a good story is made, but like a good character is made by you can put them in any situation and like have them still be like a good character. But I don't feel like that's always the case because like let's take like a kid example. Like if we took like seasons 1 through 3 SpongeBob and then put him in Dead Space, he wouldn't be a good character anymore. So it's like,
I guess what you're trying to say, if I can like fully understand, which I think I do, is like the characters are so good. The setting is because of what happens to them in that. But if the environment that their character isn't based around, they feel awkward, out of place. Like it's not like they have to be like they're part of that story for a reason. Like they need their components of their story to be what they are. You can't just pull them out and like have them in like a whole separate like setting and different things because that's not the setting that their character was designed.
Right. Thank you for that. That was exactly what I was going for.
You're welcome.
Here's just my perspective on what makes a good character. There's 3 different kinds. There's one that is like you said, like The Walking Dead and I guess Final Fantasy 15, which I haven't played, where the characters are so good in a single setting that, you know, you grow to care about them. They're you know, intriguing characters and stuff. So like I said, like Batman, we're doing this, you just, you know, mix and match whatever story and characters you want to, you know, still make a great story with them, still make a great character. Like I said, can be put in any scenario and still be awesome. But then there's another one, which is a character that is just so well fleshed out and so feels like a real person. You know what I mean? Like it.
Yeah.
You know, makes it really easy to attach to that character because they behave and they seem like what a real person would be like.
Yeah, I understand what you mean there.
Which is rare for a character to do because it's hard to, you know,
it's hard to create,
especially in like writing or a movie or a video game or something. But it's possible.
It's hard to. I get what you're trying to say. It's like with the last part at least. Like it's hard to create someone like. It's hard to create an entirely new person and make them like as believable as an already existing real person.
I think what makes certain characters so good, and at least in like their own setting, is that I find games where people can some characters it does well. So like stuff or like you can understand the emotion and stuff that they feel. So like in The Walking Dead is obviously, you know, the sorrow and danger and fear of your own life as well as those you care for. You know, you're lost. It's like it's not like you don't have technology to the extent you did. You know, cell towers are gone. There's no one to keep up electricity, all this other stuff. It's just you against the world at its most natural point in that area you're in. So when you can understand, it's like they're going through something like extremely tragic, and it's like like it's impossible not to be like stressed or tense in these situations they're in, and just to find out that like something may have been all for nothing, or like, or maybe like in some instances in like a different game or a different story, they did find their family. It's like that huge sigh of relief where it's like, but you also know it's like this isn't the end of it. Like it's not an area where it is just a happy ending. It's a happy moment, but there are no happy endings, at least not yet.
Right.
So
Yeah.
in these settings that are designed for, when you can connect and relate with these people, or like maybe you understand what it's like to have someone you love pass away or something like this, or maybe you've been lost in some extreme situation where it's like, I understand, or like where you have to trust strangers, and like it's horrifying. You connect, you feel, you can understand where that's coming from. And like I haven't played Final Fantasy 15, but I played several of the other ones. I played like 5, 6, 7, 8. I believe I played a little bit of 9. Like there are stuff that happens in those worlds, but there's still emotion. There's still real people. Like you can understand like their sorrow, or like all they've worked for, and like there's reasons why they become what they are. Like they're like the heroes. They're the stories because they're the ones who are capable of that. Like you see like all the stuff they go through. It's not like a side character. Right, they're the main character because they're the one that has the most like development usually.
Right. Yeah, I get what you mean. Like exactly.
I think I was thinking about some. I think I have some examples from Star Trek of characters that I think hit that category where they're done so well that like they could be real sometimes. Everything, of course, with it being a TV show, not every episode can be good and live up to everything else. But for generally, I think that some of these characters can be considered to be fairly realistic sometimes, which is watch anything for Star Trek, but like Captain Picard, like or someone else from Benjamin Sisko, Maritza, and Gul Dukat were all characters that felt like they could be real. They all had like motivations. They all had these to their characters.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Also, I'd just like to point out that I love how this podcast started as a nice little like talk about zombie games, and it's evolved into this whole like writing of characters thing. I just think that's great.
I agree. I mean, it's a podcast. I mean, it's hard to stay on one central topic. If you can excuse me for one moment, it'll just take me a minute. I gotta grab my clothes. So,
all right,
I'll be back in a minute or two, gentlemen.
It's all right. Me and Claire can keep the fort while you're gone. So,
discuss our plan to take over the world.
Okay. So zombies, can we do it? Like real talk though, like. What is? I honestly don't think a zombie apocalypse could happen in real life, like, unless it's like in not Dead Rising, sorry, Left 4 Dead, where it's like a rabies virus, and then like it mutates like so fast that like, because like according to like the in-game like thing, sometimes the virus is airborne, sometimes it's not. Like that's physically impossible, but like unless the virus can get to like that level, I honestly don't see like there being a full-on like collapse of like nations over like if zombies actually become a thing. There's
a lot of different variables that go into that. Like, does like if a zombie, if like depending on how it infects things and stuff, you could just crush it immediately when you find it. But there's other times where like it could just be a cascading effect of things just go from bad to worse, and you just can't stop it. You just can't stop it. Like trying to stop a tidal wave with a wall of sandbags, essentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, like, because like here's the thing. Like, say it was like in The Walking Dead, where you either turn by being bitten and then dying, or you just die and you turn. For like, I feel like that wouldn't be that big of a deal because as soon as we die,
if you die and turn, think about how many people just like die and they're just not like readily found. Or let's say like if someone's like sleeping in their house with like let's say they live with like a large family or something, and they have a heart attack and they die in their sleep, and then they turn into a zombie and they're just locked in that room. And when someone notices, hey, they didn't come down for breakfast, I'm gonna go see what's wrong with them. They open up the door, bam, they're down. They're now a zombie. And then like let's say everyone in that house is now a zombie. Let's say the zombies get out, then they all spread out in different directions, and it turns into like an exponential growth of zombies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I feel like after a while there'd be a system that's put in place for that. Like, I feel like I feel like things with like in the Walking Dead comics, like you don't care for spoilers, do you?
The Walking Dead that much for the most part. Games
All
are good
right,
though.
okay. Like later on in the Walking Dead comics, they have like a lot of like settlements, and like there's like a 5 year time gap between one part and another. It's you have to assume that at some point someone just died in camp during that time. Well, I feel like that they'd have like a system down. Like, say like if you know someone's like having like problems or something like breathing or whatever.
Well, you don't always know if someone's having problems though. That's the point.
I know. I just like I feel like somehow there'd be a system that was like, like I feel like
Unless it's an Orwellian system of control where you're monitored, 24/7.
yeah.
People are going to be unaccounted for, and they always have the possibility of just spontaneously dying for no reason.
Well, technically not for no reason, but I know what you mean.
Uh,
But like I don't know.
I
My
was saying
thing is,
humans are just designed imperfectly, so we just
yeah.
tend to malfunction and die spontaneously.
I don't know. I just feel
And
like as a species, we'd be if like faced with like a crisis like that, we'd be smart enough to figure out something. Like also the other thing is like if it was like just purely like a bite bait, like say it's like remove the whole like regardless of like what happens, you're like remove the whole like regardless of how you die, as long as your head's intact, you're still dead. I really feel like the whole like but purely bite based zombie like system like that would never like take off. Like
that's an evil example of this. So again, like I say, let's say this is, no, no one knows what zombies are at first. There's no also making sure people that turn are disposed of before they can infect people. In a large densely populated city, it's going to spread quickly.
right, but
And
I still
let's say, and no matter how many zombies you kill, there's too many. There's not enough guns and not enough soldiers and cops and stuff to stop that many. So we found like the first like few zombies and wiped them out immediately.
well,
By the time any kind of government decides to nuke the city by saying like there's too many zombies when you can't control it, zombies will have wandered out of the city into the wilderness and stuff. You don't have much chance to stop it because they're just too spread out, and they're just gonna keep popping up at that point.
I don't know. I feel like in today's culture, like if a zombie apocalypse started today, like if someone just turned into a zombie, like a bite only zombie, like today, I feel like as a culture we'd know enough about like it as a whole that we'd be able to like quickly put a lid on it because it's something that we all know about as like, oh yeah, this is a zombie thing, this is what it does. Like I feel like as a whole it would be really easy to stop because like people
I
themselves
disagree
like,
with that, just based on the fact that like yes, the CDC does have plans on what to do in case of a zombie apocalypse, but generally, first mass media will just immediately be like, "Oh my God, zombie apocalypse!" And for once, they'll actually be right. But generally, people in charge will be like, "What's up with this new mysterious disease? What's going on? Is this some kind of biological weapon attack? Is this some kind of new virus?" If I decide this is actually zombies, initiate the zombie plan, it probably will be too late to contain the problem. So, like, whatever
But,
small
like-
area it started in.
but that's the thing though is like I'm not talking about like the government or whatever. I'm talking about like us, like people know, and if they see like someone shambling about, looking half dead, blood covering them, they're probably gonna like just like not even on like not like okay on any other day besides like a zombie like convention or whatever or like a normal convention or like Halloween.
I disagree that I don't think that people just immediately see that and be like, Because most people don't consider zombies to be a realistic ability.
No, I
Most
know,
people
but
don't,
like if someone like
like
I was sorry, you go.
like I'm gonna dress up like a bloody zombie and wander around the streets and stuff. I don't know how much. I don't think that prank has happened a lot, so I don't think that people are just murdered because of that. You know what I mean?
I'm pretty sure someone got beat up because of that once. Like it was on the news once, I think. But like I was sorry, I kind of deviated from my point originally. Like what I was trying to say was like if like you see like a bloody like limping shambling person bite someone else and start attacking them, then I'm pretty sure people are going to know what it is.
I just think it would take a while before people would realize, oh my god, zombies are actually real. You know what I mean?
I think one thing. Sorry for jumping.
It's possible, but I think it'll just take too long for people to get their crap together and actually do about it.
All right.
In a realistic aspect with a whole bunch of other different things, I think do know is the government actually had a plan formatted if
I brought that up. The CDC has a zombie plan.
yeah, I know. Like, well, no, just like the United States government has one too. Like, I know a guy who's a former Marines who was part of the program that helped develop a plan to in case of a zombie apocalypse. I don't know
Wait,
what
really?
the plan is, but I know there's one. But I think it would be very difficult to fully discern like an actual like zombie because, like I said, with modern actual science and realism, you'd have to like what would actually be defined as an actual zombie, and then you have things where people were like, a few years ago, way back when, I'm sure you all know, is that one crazy guy who was on bath salts in Florida and he started eating a homeless person's
I was just thinking about that.
Shot. You guys already talked.
No, like I was thinking about that, like
No,
when
but
we were talking about this.
I actually saw a different video where this guy was basically looked like the same one, but it was just this guy. It was this guy who was like in front of like a convenience store, and he was like screaming like a zombie, and like just nothing. He was just speaking nothing but like grunts and growls and stuff, and he was like trying to bite some officers, and they're like, it took like 4 people tasing him to finally bring him down.
Jeez.
Hmm.
So, like, Troy, what were you saying?
But there's things like with that where like that was just someone who's on some crazily intense drug that no one should be taking or making in the first place, but humanity, so they will. But so like whether or not it's like it's someone.
It's about Jankum sometime then, because that's the best drug ever.
Wait, what?
After this, I have to tell you guys about Jankum because that's the best drug ever.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and you hear about this?
Degenerates.
You'll disagree.
Anyways, but then also like I said, there's actual something too back to like what biological factors would be apparent and for what is a zombie is is it like a parasite that takes over someone like I mean there's been people that have debated this stuff before like there's stuff where like if there was some type of thing fully typically seen would not be real because the brain wouldn't be able to produce like whatever like chemicals and different things then notice that like oh I need food I need stuff for my stomach if the body to eat to why would it need to eat to digest
a real zombie won't have a dead body. Like I said, see that's the problem with real zombies that they can't be a walking corpse because a corpse can't function anymore. That's the reason why it's a corpse.
Right.
There's like
Exactly.
no
problem with it is so severe that it just cannot function anymore. That's the whole point of death. So a real zombie would still be alive. It would just be mentally gone essentially. It'd be parasite or virus has taken over it. But the thing is,
and then, but also you have to understand
any real zombie would be able to be killed with any mortal wound that could be afflicted to any normal person. The only difference would be that these zombies probably wouldn't react to pain. So, like, you shoot them in the arm, it's slow it down. You shoot it in the face or the heart or something, it's gonna die immediately. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, how effective? Say this is a parasite. That would be probably the most logical thing. What functions would this parasite be able to obtain? Because obviously the human, like the most complex brain amongst majority of organisms, on this planet. And so, like with the cordyceps and like the ant, it can find a high point, it can lock its jaw, and then like it doesn't need to do anything else. I don't know what else it could do if given the chance. But then, with humans,
reason why cordyceps only affects insects because they have such simple brains compared to like mammals.
Yeah, but like what capabilities? Would it be just basic movement? Would it be somehow have thought process, whatever else? What would happen if, say, it started taking over the body? Would the person's immune system like overcame it? It's like there's just so many factors and things. You'd have it had to be studied. Like we honestly don't know. Like
I'll use an example of rabies again because like it to take control.
There's never a
of
zombie
you,
apocalypse. It's going to be rabies.
All it has to do is it just has to trigger that one trigger the secretion of one chemical that just triggers rage.
Yeah.
That's all you really have to do to turn someone into a zombie. Essentially, just shut everything down except for the rage part of the brain.
Which is basically Left 4 Dead, except there's also the weird special infected.
Weird special infected in real life.
I mean, okay, you know what? I mean, you don't see anyone walking around with like one gigantic arm that's as tall as they are, then one small, like, normal-sized arm on the other side. I wouldn't call them.
Have you not seen that episode of Rick and Morty that came out a little while ago?
Okay.
They're in the. I mean, come on,
Pharmacy?
man. It's like so realistic.
Yes, Rick and Morty is a great way to compare to real life.
I'm waiting for that zombie that when it bites you, it just turns you into a pickle.
Oh no.
Now we're getting into this weird stuff, like zombie.
Okay.
I bring up the drug I mentioned before. So, if anyone ever heard of Jenkum before?
Nope.
Not until you mentioned it.
I'll give you the step-by-step process on how to make Jenkum then, because it's really simple. Step 1, you acquire a water bottle. Step 2, you poop in the water bottle. Step 3, bottle it for about 2 or 3 weeks. And step 4, just inhale it.
That sounds horrible. Why is that a thing?
You see things, like you hallucinate and stuff.
And you've done this.
Give me one moment, boys.
Wait, hold on. Cleric, you've done this.
That's fucking disgusting. I just think it's absolutely hilarious though that it actually exists, and that someone thought it was a good idea.
So, okay, I was going to say, it sounded like the way you were describing it sounded like you've done it before, so.
I drink alcohol, so. Anything that really messes with my mind at all, so I don't really do much. You know what I mean?
Don't ask why.
I'm
Fair
like
enough.
that.
Actually, you can because last time. Well, you've already come in here and get. Well, yeah. Shay was in here. And you weren't. Follow the track. Where were they in my box of stuff?
So,
Premium
what
sauce.
was I going to say? Here, I'm just going to put them on mute for a second. There we go. There we go. I'll bring Troy back in a minute. So, where were we? You're talking about your little weird drug thing that you thought was interesting?
I just thought hilarious. I just like finding out about weird and stupid, gross drugs that people try out, just because I think it's that.
Fair enough.
But listen, I have some really weird things. I just find entertaining. Okay.
Fair enough.
As I say, I personally don't use any kind of drugs or anything because I just don't like doing it. I just don't like anything that really messes with my mind too much. So I don't really smoke drugs or anything.
Yeah.
Smart.
Troy, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I apologize.
All right, cool.
There's
No, it's okay. I just put you on mute for like a second because someone came in. Sorry.
Yeah, it's dorm.
I was disappointed that it wasn't a spork. Sporks are the best utensil.
Don't even start with that.
Well, if you want to go buy plastic sporks from Walmart, I'll happily take them. But
all right, so I think we've gone about as far as the topic of zombies can take us.
okay.
So So, everyone have a good time. Everyone cool with ending it here.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I would love to do another podcast someday too, if you wouldn't mind.
Sweet. Cleric, what you say? Me too.
Did you ask what did I say?
No, I asked what Cleric said. Or like what does he say to this? Like anyway, do either of you guys have like a topic for next time if you guys want to do this again?
I think I have a few that I might suggest, but some of them are kind of controversial.
All right, how about suggest a non-controversial topic? Because I don't feel like getting attacked by anyone, but still.
Can you just say by Phil?
I said by anyone, but
Oh.
still. No, Phil. Honestly, if Phil actually took the time to come over, to come halfway across the country, I would be impressed. Like just to attack me, I'd be impressed.
Have a podcast where it's like you, me, Philip, and Chris and Dan. I think it would go from a podcast to like Philip trying to defend himself while Dan insults him, and like Chris.
And Chris just makes it. Chris just adds fuel to the fire.
That would be a good
Yeah.
podcast. But I mean, there's
so
obviously other different like games and stuff we can talk about,
But like, do you have a specific topic you'd like the next episode to be? Because I chose this episode, so I feel like it's only fair that one of you guys get to choose the next topic.
Mm-hmm. I think a good topic, I don't know if you've done it yet, but fighting games, because I know you're very well into it. You know, there's different types of styles and like different, the difference between like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and Skullgirls, and then you have stuff like, the new Dragon Ball Z coming out, and then you have things that maybe could be considered a fighting game if you want to do like Dragon Ball Xenoverse. There's all kinds of different like variabilities and stuff to it, and different characters and stories.
So we're having Jordan rants about pointless things for an hour of the episode early. All right, I'm cool with that. So, Cleric, you cool with that being the next episode?
And I don't really play fighting games either, so I'm not sure. Fighter before then, so I can get some ideas to talk about.
All right, here I can send you some ROMs for a couple good fighting games if you want. Yeah, I just dropped my comb.
I should play Guilty Gear actually, because that's probably the best fighting game I've played.
Ooh, okay. Not going to take away from this episode by getting into that, but we'll talk about Guilty Gear next time because I have some things to say.
Oh man, next week's going to be a very much
Watch
more
out for
detailed and intense.
Come back next week for insert podcast name here.
We'll have a name by next week, I promise.